5:16 PM, the meeting of the Facilities and Finance Committee has been called to order by Mr. Ivory.
All board members are present except for Dr. Upshur.
Is he coming back?
He should be, but at the moment he's not.
Yeah, his bag's here.
Mr. Betts. Dr. Serrano, good afternoon. Judge Arity, board members, good afternoon. We'll go ahead and get started fairly quickly because I understand that we have a time constraint. So starting with Mission El Paso, this project's going well. They started on the roofing and the exterior skin, and as you can tell, there's already half of the final driveway for the main road already open. As far as the schedule on this, the milestone for this project is October 15th. In other words, if they're right in October 15th, we'll be in great shape. If we're not, so by the next board, next board meeting, I should be able to report back to you if we're on track or not. This was the last portion of concrete to be poured, and it got poured over the weekend. So we're pretty much done with all the concrete pours for the building. As far as the schedule, we're still, it hasn't changed as far as the confidence level. We still feel they can be done by January 10th, but again, at the next board meeting, I'll give you a little more of an update to see where they are versus where they seem they're going to be. As far as they're still lagging behind on the invoicing versus the actual progress, but hopefully this will start turning those back up a little bit. And also, as they bring more and more crews in the mechanical equipment, all that, those numbers will go up. Northwest, this project is going well. We're still pretty much on schedule, and I'll go over that in just a minute. This is probably the project that's been making the most progress of all of them in terms of intensifying and actually working the extra time, bringing extra people to get the job done. So we had great progress. As you can tell, in some areas they're already cleaning. They're actually going to start punching the building on the 7th. We do owe them 14 calendar days, and that's what this circle here with the dash indicates. That's the date that we're looking at now. We feel like they will be able to achieve that date, and it still should give us plenty of time to get done. So the high confidence level for this project remains in terms of getting the project on schedule to open in the spring. They're starting to close here, as you can tell, and now after we actually changed that date from 10/10 to the 14th, that will tighten up even a little more. The same thing showed they had a big drop here that you can tell the curve is starting to reverse, and they're starting to catch up. The Rio Grande, it's going very well. I think they got the hang of to put these slabs together, and now they're actually done completely with the 4th floor. They've started framing the 5th floor. So it's overall good news. You can tell the finished floor for the parking garage below. One little caveat, and just to give you a heads up, it's not final, but it's in our radar right now. We've been having issues with El Paso Electric Water Utilities to come and do the tie-in. This area here, as you can tell, there's a big hole here where nothing has happened, and the reason for that is the El Paso Water Utility is going to bring under the rails. They're going to bring service to the building. The problem is that they had to get extra insurance because Sun Metro required for them to go under the rails. That was about $20,000. EPCC paid me like 2 months ago, but they're really dragging. We've been actually fairly forceful with them. If we don't get them on site doing this work in 2 weeks, it will be a problem, but I'll report it the next board meeting.
These are the rails for the trolley?
Yes, sir. Yeah, because that was one of the things that we had to pay, EPCC had to pay an extra $20,000 just to ensure the digging under there. So it's, but it's a requirement they have, and I believe this is probably the first time they're having to do this type of connection too.
I heard today they gotta do the same thing for the parade, because they gotta
Oh,
do
really?
the parade over the rails. They gotta have $1 million insurance policy.
I know that, I didn't know, I didn't hear.
Found that out this morning.
It's pretty expensive. So here, they're actually pouring the stairs, and this is where the elevator's gonna be, the stairs gonna be here, there's another elevator on the other side. But again, they're moving right ahead, right on time. We owe them 7 calendar days, which will put us September 1st as far as substantial completion. And the 7 days was 4 days for weather, and that's part of the problem. Like if we have rain one time, if it rains, which happened to us in this case, when you're planning on pouring, now you can't just bring the crew next day. Now you got to reschedule it. So that's why technically we should have got just 1 day delay, but we ended up with 4 days. And then the other 3 days was just a conflict with the drawings that delayed. It was in a critical path, so we delayed the contractor. And so this one's a beautiful thing here. I mean, they're staying right on track, pretty much with the progress, so that's one good thing. As far as Valle Verde classroom, it's going well. As a matter of fact, I was in a phone call right now before this meeting, talking to the VP, because we are concerned about the progress on this one. And to be honest, I'm showing you the most finished areas, because if you go to the 3rd floor, it doesn't look very finished. So they're still getting a little bit behind. We did meet with them, and I told you we were going to meet, we met on the 28th of August to have a discussion about the schedule. And this is what it looks like. If you recall, there was a cut in the slab we had to do to allow the curtain wall to go past, and I remember at the time I kind of show you what we're talking about. This is finally came to materialize. They wanted 40 days, we didn't want to give them any days, but they were able to prove 27 days. And for that one change is 27 days, which would put a December 19th substantial completion date. The caveat to this is on top of that, they are another month behind, but it's their problem. So they made a commitment to the college that they will bring, they basically writing quote unquote a blank check to the subs to bring more people in to get done. We have a little concern with that because we haven't seen it so far. We're hoping they'll turn around pretty quick. But right now, it looks like we're going to miss the spring semester. And so ultimately the goal would be to make it the spring semester, particularly in terms of funding. It's absolutely critical that we get that done, and we certainly going to make a push to see that that gets done, and we'll certainly communicate that to the contractor. Thus, this is where I was last time, this is where we are now. We basically have zero confidence they will be done by the spring semester, so we unfortunately have to do that day. Going on the building, they look fine. They actually, it coincides pretty well with where they start getting behind, which is like the May, June time frame. So this one is actually very accurate in terms of progress. As far as the safety, fantastic, and no incidents since last time. We're at 387,000 hours, and we're good. As far as project, this basically reflects what I've been telling you for the other projects that brings everything together. So now we're looking at Valle Verde Admission, meeting spring meeting master, Northwest School of the Spring, and Rio Grande Fall meeting master for the time being. Well, as far as the budget, it's still pretty adequate right now. We're still at a contingency of 4.3 million overall. We did get a little lucky on at Northwest, because if you recall, we approved $280,000 for equipment, and it actually turned out to be a little over 210. So we had 70 to move down to contingency. So far I haven't had to bother Ms. Chauncey for more funds, because we were able to use those 70,000 to cover the deficit, at least so far. But as you can see, we're doing well. In terms of financing, we're doing actually quite well. This is the overall bond, nothing's changed pretty much since last time you've seen it. And going into the action items. The first one is electrical revisions and administrative box. Now, for the sake of full disclosure, these things already took place. So I'm really, really hoping you'll approve it, because otherwise we're in trouble. And also, so you'll know, the days there are mentioned in these action items, they already part of the other days that have been approved. So it's not additional days, if that makes any sense. Everybody following me on that? Hopefully, okay. So, so what we're talking about is the proposed action item reads to formally approve the proposed change order to HP Construction in amount not to exceed $143,000 for electrical revisions and revision site key boxes for the Valle Verde Classroom Lab Building construction project. This PCO increased the contract time by, it actually this turned out to be 10 days, so it'll be 10 days, but it's already been applied towards the balance that you're already aware of. This one, it's basically the way this turned out was the consultant for the architect for this project used these spoke-through devices that they were standard for their specifications, and unfortunately they ignored the EPCC standards, and obviously we had to correct that because these really are not that great. They're very small, they're not practical, and they're not functional. So we had to make a change order to bring them to these boxes, and this is kind of the boxes that really EPCC requires. So we had to make that decision. This is like 4 months old. This is from a long time back, and the reason for this is we've been going back and forth with them on this. And just to give you an idea, we're not done with this yet. We now establish it's not over the amount I'm asking you for. That's why it says not to exceed. But we're still, like for example, this is the last submission we got from them. They gave us the credits for those other boxes. They gave us the ads. And then they put this in here, well, that's not permitted by the UGC's Uniform General Conditions. So now we have to send them back to them. The other thing was, for example, this is just to give you an example of things we have to do, and that's why it takes so much time, because we're constantly reviewing this, is for instance here they say 2114, but they're charging us 24, 25, 27. There might be a very good reason, but they sure haven't showed it to us, so we can't approve it. And so this kind of reflects that. But long story short, this is basically what we're asking for, and you'll probably go down a little bit with further revisions, but I really didn't want to wait till the next, because I've been promising you to bring these change orders for quite a while, and now we feel at least comfortable that's the most we're going to pay for it. If anything, will be approved. Yes, sir.
These things that you're replacing, are they just strictly a power hub, or do they have communication?
Oh, that IT, AV.
They have the
Yes.
IT link in there
And
also,
AV as
right?
well. Yes, sir.
Okay, and they're in the floor, in
Yes,
the
sir.
concrete,
Yes,
so we're gonna have to break concrete?
No, that's the whole thing, and that's part of the reason that I told you we already done this, because we had to get it, and thanks to Marco and his team, we were able actually to minimize the requirements and actually trade at less boxes, and that's why you see a credit in there for more pull-throughs. But there was a last minute thing, so we could catch it up before all this floor got poured. So the boxes are already there.
Can you explain a little bit? So a few of the bad boxes were installed.
No, now we're talking the circular, that's what
Yes,
you mean?
the bad boxes, or the old boxes.
Okay.
A few of them were installed, and Marco's team caught it. And in conjunction with us, we went back and reviewed the problem and identified what the issue was. And at that same time, obviously, we stopped more installations, and we requested the change. And so they installed the right boxes, and there were very few that had to be removed and replaced.
Okay,
A
but
few.
that's.
Or none of them. None of them. Okay, he's telling me none of them.
No, we caught it early enough. The big one on this one was able to actually not pay restocking fees, because now we had to send all these back. And because we caught it early enough, we didn't have to pay restocking.
Okay, so we have the updated square box in place.
Yes, sir.
And they're in
In the slide.
Installed, yes.
okay, installed.
In the three
Okay,
floors.
and so what we're doing is we're now saying, hey, they're billing, we're going back on errors and omissions, saying, hey, okay, that's fine, that's cool, it's just that, is that how we're going on errors
Well,
and omissions?
let me say, there might be a portion of that, that's the next step. The one thing that I want to clarify, if you go back to the previous slides, is the new box is an upgrade. And what happened is that the contractor originally bid the less expensive box.
So we might owe for the upgrade,
Yeah, yes.
incremental upgrade
Yes, sir.
portion.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay,
But how come you all
ballpark.
didn't catch it back then
54,000.
when they did it?
Well, it was an unforeseen situation where the spec went wrong to begin with. The spec went incorrectly.
No, but I mean,
We caught it in the submittal process.
you and your team are, looking at this.
Yes. Yes, I mean, we should have caught it. Had ECM been perfect, we should have caught it, yes, ma'am.
Well, then you should pay for it.
Well, wait a minute, but what I'm trying to explain to you is that the cost is not, the cost is the cost of the more expensive box.
Okay.
So you would have paid the more expensive money early on.
Okay.
It's not like you're paying twice, you're just paying once, but you're getting a better box.
If
Okay.
we
So
did
that's
it-
why
I know
you're
we're
paying
talking-
it again.
If it's up to it,
No,
we would
you're
have
not
had
paying
it in the original.
Yes,
Probably
yes,
paying the
that is correct.
Putting behind.
Who did the bid specs?
Actually, that's what I was about to mention, is the irony of the thing is the company that actually wrote the IT specs was the company that wrote the specs. But for some reason that nobody can figure out, it might have been an intern in the back that just picked a stack of specs, stuck it into the wrong ones in the drawings. This is typically, these here is typically what that company uses. And so, but they should have known, particularly since they were the ones, and we paid them extra for it, correct if I'm wrong, for them to write the standards.
Let me kind of even explain further. So we hired a company. These guys help us in conjunction with Marcos Group put together a spec of standards for IT. Okay, so, and then this same company is part of the architects team that provided the specs, and they put the wrong ones. They didn't follow the specs that they developed. And therefore, you know, again, we trusted that they knew what they were doing since they had written the spec. You know, it was an oversight. But again, you would have paid very close to the same amount if the right spec had been written to begin with.
So we were reaping the benefits of a decreased price because of a mistake.
That they did.
I make a motion that we approve the proposed change order to HB Construction in an amount not to exceed $223,000 for electrical revisions and revisions to IT process for the magnetic classroom lab building construction project.
We have a second?
PCO
Second.
increases the contract time by 10 days.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. The next action item regards these shadow boxes, so I'm going to be reading and explain to you in just a second what these shadow boxes are. It's to formally approve a proposed change order PCO for HB Construction in an amount not to exceed $81,800 for modifications to shadow boxes for the Valladolid Classroom Lab Building Construction Project. And this PCO does increase the contract time by 14 days, but again, these 14 days have already been.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. And the next action item is computer desktop equipment, and this one is very simple. This is for the Northwest project. In order to order the necessary computers and monitors for the project, he's looking at you. We're asking for the funding of $109,000, which includes a 10% contingency, and he says we're all good.
Here,
Make
motion.
a motion that we authorize the college president and his staff to procure computer desktop equipment from Dell Incorporated using the amount not to exceed $190,000, which includes a 10% contingency for the Northwest Class Lab construction project.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
And that's it. Any questions?
You got off light.
I know, I was lucky. Thank you all.
Mr. Randy, if I could, I just wanted to explain really quickly the report that I just distributed. So, Mr. Perez talked about the budget. This actually is a report that tracks all the expenses per project.
Okay.
So the very
Can we
first.
stop right here, because I'm very confused. So we just took action on 3 items under SPY. So we going back to the overview item that was presented under 4.1?
Yes.
It was on the update of the briefing. Can
Yes.
we reread that then?
Yes, ma'am.
So we can.
Item 4.1, Mr. Paulo Perez, Program Manager ECM, provided an update briefing on the progress of the Combined Fee Revenue Bond Series 2016. Briefing items will include but are not limited to a general update and including schedule and budget for all 6 projects, as well as an overall bond schedule and budget update. And you're providing your bond schedule.
Yes, so what I'm providing actually, and I didn't want to give that to you every month because it's a lot of information, you see a lot of numbers, but we're at the point now where we have like 2 projects that are almost completed. So we're going to kind of give you an idea the way we are tracking the expenses. So Mr. Perez presented to you the budget, and so you see basically the overall budget. So the very first sheet of that packet shows the budget per project and information in terms of the source of funds. Recall that we did not have enough with the total bond proceeds, so we supplemented those bond proceeds with an additional money from our project reserve fund, which is institutional funds. So that's the very first sheet that you see. So that budget mirrors what Mr. Perez has presented in total on the budget per project. Then you have a sheet that shows a tracking of all expenses since the inception of the project per campus. So you'll see, for example, if you look at VVTTC, you're going to see a column that shows per fund, and we track per fund. It's not just like Mr. Perez will show total construction or total, but we have to show it by fund because we keep track of those expenditures the way they have to be capitalized accounting-wise. And I don't want to get into too much detail, but there is a rhyme and reason for everything that we are showing you here. But let's say if you look at the VVTTC project, the first column shows you the fund, the description, and then the third column is the ECM projected project, and then all the expenses that have been incurred since the inception of that project. So for TTC, we started having some expenses in 16-17 fiscal year. So if you notice, if you go across that TTC, that worksheet on the TTC, you see a column for fiscal year 16-17 expenses, then you have for 17-18 expenses, and then we have current expenses for 18-19, and then the total expenses to date as of August 31st. And then you show commitment, the budget, any kind of variance, but it's just to show you how we are tracking that. This is extremely detailed process because we have to be able, if we were to be audited by the IRS, we have to show how we are using those tax-exempt bonds proceeds. So again, in each project is, you can see, we have the similar worksheet for the VV Classroom Lab Edition, for the TM Classroom Lab Edition, so on and so forth. So if you have any question about this, you're certainly welcome to send the questions and we'll be glad to respond. We meet on this budget once a month prior to the board meeting, and we make sure that we agree. Now, Mr. Perez does not keep track of the expenses the way we do, because they don't have to worry about an accounting process like we do. But we make sure that we agree in terms of budget, and we're always on track. So I just want to kind of comfort you, let you know that we are keeping track of our expenses, dollar and cents, Mr. Hadley.
I know.
And we actually will meet with you and try to make sure that we're on the same page.
That is correct.
And she often corrects us.
I have one question. If we have any money left over, where's that money go?
So that's a discussion we can have once we have money that is bond proceeds money that we can allocate it to other projects. They have to stay, so it has to be spent. So we can't, so if we have, let's say, money left from contingency, then we can decide either to reimburse, because we're allowed to do that, we can reimburse the money that we use from our institutional funds, from the project reserve fund, or we can allocate it for other projects that we deem necessary to do the next. We do have a timeline, which is within 3 years we have to spend it.
And it has to be within the scope of what that bond was originally.
Correct,
Right.
that's right. But the covenant is pretty
Pretty
wide,
wide.
yes, pretty open to, it's usually not supplies, it really has to be capital expenditures. So construction, equipment, certainly furniture that can be capitalized, but we cannot do something, for example, consumable supplies. Yes, sir.
Construction can be capitalized?
Yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely. We do capitalize construction, yes. In other words, we capitalize it so it's depreciated over a 40-year period.
Yeah, okay, so
We
it's
have
treated as if it were a piece of machinery.
Absolutely.
Son of a gun.
So which of the projects is gonna be ahead of schedule, any of them? I know they're not on the budget now, but, or maybe.
Well, we're doing real good in the budget, and so far with the new schedules, we are technically on the schedule, because we're not the extension.
I'm not ahead of schedule.
Unfortunately not. I wish I could tell you otherwise, but I don't. Yes, sir.
Last time you were here, you said that you wanted to alert us that there might be a concern in two areas as far as budget, being on time.
In terms of budget?
No, in terms of completion.
Yes, and one was via Verdi, which I kind of covered a little bit.
You were out of the room.
And at the time, I was a little bit concerned with Northwest, but now with these 14 days, I think they'll be fine.
Okay, and the other one?
No,
Via Verdi, yes, sir. Yeah, I'll get it.
Okay, we're running about 15 minutes late, so we need.
Didn't mean to interrupt, I apologize. Just let you know that the grand opening is scheduled for 11/20 for EPCC, and I'm passing these down.
November 20th.
And I'm passing these down. I completely forgot.
We'll
Here,
send it
yeah,
out.
you can-
We'll send
and I
it to the
completely
board.
forgot to
Sure,
pass these
they're-
down, so.
We do. It'll be in the morning.
Okay,
We'll announce that.
hold on one second. Mr. Hager, are we adjourning?
We adjourn. I've been told I don't have to ask a motion. We're adjourned.